And here I am back again, talking about the SDG 14, which is life below water, calls on the fashion industry to conserve and sustainably use the ocean, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. We have decided, however, through relying on unsustainable production and design practices, the fashion sector is responsible for much of the ocean's rising pollution levels that threaten marine life. Today, we will be exploring current challenges, opportunities, and areas for improvement at the intersection of ocean protection and fashion production. Let's start with a short conversation with Professor Dr. Antje Boetius, Director, Alfred-Wegener-Institute, Helmholtz Center for Polar and Marine Research, Germany. This conversation has been pre-recorded, and we asked Antje Boetius where she got her passion for the deep sea from, what fascinates her most regarding our oceans.
Hello to the studio of Frankfurt Fashion SDG Summit from the bustling space of the Alfred-Wegener-Institute in Bremerhaven. Thank you very much for this invitation to speak and contribute with a view on the state of the planet, which is the only celestial body that we know hosting life, because it is mostly covered by water. I am fascinated by the oceans because they are simply our life support system. The oceans host an immense diversity of life that has emerged from the sea even to land. And as a deep sea researcher, I get to dive to the depths of the sea and see with my own eyes how colorful and funky all of these unknown life forms are. And we are talking 1 million animal species that we do not know today, and probably 1 billion of microbes, single-cell life. The deep sea, with average depths of 4 kilometers, represents 60% of the Earth's surface, and it consists of very diverse landscapes that we are now beginning to discover because we have better tools, such as robotic platforms with cameras and acoustic devices that can listen into the ocean sound. And my favorite tool, of course, deep diving submersibles. To understand what the deep sea is, you must think giant dark space, absence of sunlight, and 90% of the habitable space on planet Earth. Cold temperatures in rare spots, boiling waters where new ocean crust is born. And this space is so large and has little energy because there is simply no sunlight, hence no green plants. And most life is challenged by the task to find food, find mates, escape predators. Deep sea life thus uses self-made light for communication. We call it bioluminescence. It uses sound. And most life forms have long and diverse appendages to feel the environment and any type of current or movement. Many are transparent, others are immensely colorful. The darkness protects them, and they will not be preyed upon as on land when they're flashy. So on the one hand, we have so much to find, understand, get inspired by. It's almost an unknown planet within planet Earth. But on the other hand, our task as ocean scientists is increasingly to take note of the destruction. Climate change takes its toll because it changes the food to the deep sea, and it warms the oceans. It litters them with plastic. It changes everything.
On the 5th of December 2017, the United Nations General Assembly proclaimed 2021 to 2030 the decade of the ocean science for sustainable development. We wanted to know from her, why are the oceans so important for our ecosystems, and what is the current situation of our oceans?
Imagine Earth as an organism and its surface as its skin, and then think 70% of the skin is made of water, with immense functions for life. That water, skin, takes up 93% of the heat from the atmosphere. It takes up 1/3 of the CO2 we emit, a lot of nutrients and minerals from the rivers and atmosphere, and sinks these in a self-cleaning procedure. The algae floating in the sunlit part of the sea in the top 100 meters make half of the oxygen we breathe. And the diverse ocean life has invented a gazillion of solutions that we would like to tap into. How to live long, how to consume little, how to improve the immune system, how to collaborate with bacteria in beneficial ways, how to communicate on a lot of different channels, how to produce sound that reaches hundreds of kilometers. But this blue, watery surface skin of Earth, the oceans, are endangered. Ocean warming and acidification, overuse and pollution are meanwhile affecting vast areas of the ocean. Some of the knowledge we scientists have to share with you is very painful. The current carbon emission rates, the greenhouse gas effect, will lead to a worldwide destruction of coral reefs and the loss of Arctic sea ice. In fact, we may be the last generation of humans which live to have seen the beauty of giant reefs and a sea ice biome around the North Pole. So this International Ocean Decade that has just begun shall help science to think and act connected, to take a systems approach, to align our knowledge to the big overarching question: how can we live in balance with the oceans? How can we use their riches in a sustainable manner and protect their beauty, thereby protecting us and future generations?
And last but not least, we wanted to know from Antje Boetius where she sees the link between the fashion industry and the state of our oceans, and what can and should the fashion and textile industry do in terms of ocean protection.
When I think about fashion and what it means to me, I would like to come back to the image of surfaces, of skin. My clothes are my second skin. And as I said, we can think of the Earth's surface as a skin too, that we are part of in all ocean life. The big question is, how can we keep that skin healthy, glowing, radiant, diverse, and beautiful? And how can we not continue to dry it up, to inflammate it, scratch it open, and to cement it? Textile industry and fashion, as you know, is a giant sector with two heads, almost like Janus, the Roman god of the beginning and the ending. In textile and fashion industry, the most miserable practices, working conditions, and incredibly destructive poisonous material uses meet the highest form of art in manufacturing, of sustainable uses, of recycling methods, and also the most immense luxury. It is absolutely urgent to stop the destructive practices and find ways to think new, think systemic, think surface of Earth. To me, as I said, clothes are my surface, the second skin, and fashion allows me to be colorful, to change my surfaces, change the texture, connect with others, display symbols, celebrate beauty, celebrate arts and skills. And I wish that fashion industry could think of the way they influence not only human surfaces, but the entire surface of Earth. And hence, it could really take a stand to celebrate life and protect it. Thank you again for the invitation, Frankfurt Fashion SDG Summit. I hope you find my intervention useful, and I really hope your community will contribute to finding solutions for the oceans we love.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Antje Boetius, for your inspiring and important insights. Great information on that point. Building off her conversation, we have Runa Ray, designer and environmentalist, as well as Svein Rasmussen, founder and owner of Starboard, co-founder of the sustainable fashion brand SOMWR, here with us today. First and foremost, I hope that I pronounce your name correctly and you're still there with your feed.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Ah, gosh, you have no idea really with all these international names, but I'm doing my best. Well, thank you first and foremost that you found some time just to join us. And of course, I would like to ask or start with Runa. Is Runa or is it Runa?
It's Runa.
Runa, okay.
Well, you can say, yeah, it's fine.
No, I just, first and foremost, because we are so grateful that you're here, we just want to make the two of you happy. This is like the most important thing to us at this point, you see? This is why.
We're very happy. Thank you so much.
All right. So please, Runa, can you update our audience in some of the biggest about some of the biggest threats to ocean conservation that the fashion industry is currently contributing to?
Firstly, I'd like to thank you so much. Thank the Conscious Fashion Campaign and the Frankfurt SDG Summit for hosting such an important event at the start of the Ocean Decade. Well, this is a really big question, and I do not know where to start. The fashion industry has a lot of contributions when everything comes to the oceans. It's just like the SDGs, everything is interlinked. So you have like the CO2 emissions that are done by the transport, you've got the microfibers that are entering the oceans from the natural and synthetic fibers. You've got 96% of fabric that is created in developing nations, and out of which you have around 90% of this fabric which is synthetically dyed. And most of the chemicals, as we know, are pretty detrimental. We've also got plastics not just reaching the oceans from our clothes, but also through accessories, mannequins, hangers, We also have a very important thing called the carbon footprint of the sewing machine, which we're trying to see how we could probably negate. So you have different impacts, like the direct and indirect, but I think there is every portion of the industry that kind of directly contributes to the oceans. For example, even if you take like the cotton seed, the seed takes around 16% of the pesticides that are used, and this again reaches the oceans. It is also extremely water intensive. So I think there are a lot of departments that contribute to the global warming and directly to the oceans, and it is up to us to work together as united as the industry to see how we could probably mitigate these problems.
It's just all about plastic, but this is quite some insightful information that I got here from you. So, Svein, what is Starboard's approach to tackling plastic pollution within oceans, which is like more the common threat to the oceans these days?
Well, Patrice, first of all, thanks for letting me join in from Thailand in this important session on ocean health. And listening to Runa, listening to Professor Antje, there's clearly a lot of knowledge out there, a lot of passion, and we just have to celebrate everybody who takes this serious. So our Starboard headquarters is based by a little river here in Bangkok, and our development center is at the beach about an hour south. So we are reminded on the rising levels of ocean plastic pollution pretty much every day. Our little company builds all sorts of boards, paddle boards, windsurf boards, foil boards, wing boards, and lots of other toys for ocean use. So every time we go testing our gear, we see sad amounts of plastic in the water on our own beaches. And as some of you may know, we evacuated our headquarters yesterday due to a large chemical explosion nearby. So we traveled to the beach, had a great water session. But I love, I love to get into the water. So as it got quite dark, I couldn't see any longer all the plastic there. So the foil on my wingboard, it got caught in plastic stuff many times over, and I just kept on catapulting. And then I gave up and went in for some late dinner. So the question is, why have we let ocean plastic pollution levels go this far and still done close to nothing about it? I believe as humans, we have enough scientific information about ocean plastic pollution to fast track regulations. We have so many other rules in the world to protect us from danger, but very little about ocean plastic pollution. Like about 4 years ago, our team created our first online plastic regulation map, showcasing the plastic regulations worldwide. That was for governments to have a one-stop option to view global regulations, see what was in place and where. We also showcased all the active plastic fighting organizations, then put them in touch with each other so they could learn from each other's activities. Also others could see where they were operating. But you know what? It makes me quite angry that companies and governments continue to sing happy songs about plastic recycling, when we all know that we will not be able to recycle all that single-use plastics worldwide by 2030. So we simply witness that the oceans continue to fill up with plastic trash and microplastics. So our Starboard approach is an experiment to help puncture that vacuum of ignorance in any way we can think of. So our dedicated project team is busy with never-ending priorities, looking for the lower hanging fruits. One would be our Starboard Olympic IQ foil class. We work together with World Sailing on environmental projects towards the Paris and the LA Games. So it is kind of exciting to see and include the voices from the world of sports. On the other awareness side, we run something called the Trash Hero Bangkok chapter. So we bring in volunteers for collections every Thursday. In this way, we can help educate local people. We bring in the universities, the schools, other companies, and our embassies. So we can somehow create bigger circles of engagement. Now, streaming down further, we are not allowing for single-use plastic by any employees at our company premises. And we also have no single-use plastic allowed for the packaging of our thousands of different types of products. Now, on the regulation side, so we engage with the Asian UN activities from their headquarters here in Bangkok to try to fast-track regional regulations. Next, I think, is a campaign now with the Norwegian embassy to engage on the political and private sector level as well. We need to kind of go in from all angles. However, you know, there are pluses and minuses. So when we stopped using single-use plastic on the Starboard products, our CO2 footprint went up. So we, however, balanced that by planting mangrove trees in our WIF climate park in Myanmar. So we are still a 10 times climate positive company, all planting verified by Vera and VCS. So it is really not that hard, right? So Starboard is, however, one of our little industry's largest polluter. We use loads of fossil fuel. They're based raw mats like EPS foam, PVC, resin, that's like epoxy resin. Some of it may be bioresin, however, lots of paint. So concerning the plastic parts, the pure plastic parts, we are using upcycled fishing nets from our alliance partner DSM. That's actually running quite okay. And to go a bit more serious into it, we teamed up with the Ocean Recovery Alliance and calculated our plastic footprint. I think, I don't know if you can see it here, but these are our tabs. That's how they look like. On the back side, it will be about our carbon footprint. These come for the products. Each product has a different one. So that's just to kind of help people to understand what's going on out there and what a company can do to share that. So then we, after calculating this plastic footprint, we thought, okay, we tax ourselves. So a plastic tax was put in place, an internal plastic tax. We used that money to fund our plastic collection team of 50 people that trawls the beaches around the test center pretty much every day. We named this project the Plastic Offset Program. We call it POP for short. This year target is to collect about 100,000 kilo of beach or ocean plastic at our beaches. So seeing that it was possible to turn negative to positive in our core business, we wanted to further our engagement to a broader level. So we started SOMWR Apparel, a brand together with Timo Perske, who had been a leader in using recycled polyester for apparel. However, SOMWR uses no plastic or fossil fuel-based materials and no plastic packaging. We chose to use only certified organic cotton, no polyester, no recycled polyester in our garments. But to highlight ocean pollution, we pick up 1.1 kilo of beach ocean plastic for each single apparel item we produce, t-shirt, cap, whatever it may be. Why 1.1 kilo? It's basically the average plastic pollution going into the ocean per person per year. So something everybody can kind of relate to. Now we know, one person, 1.1 kilo. So even if SOMWR is not a contributor to ocean plastic pollution, we provide an opportunity to anyone to join us in the fight for a clean ocean through their apparel choices. Now, the SOMWR experimental program helps to educate, share awareness, and take direct action, showcasing how apparel can be a positive contributor to ocean health. Now, SOMWR is also a 10 times climate positive company, so actively fighting ocean acidification through the natural carbon sequestration. Anyone can make ocean-minded choices through SOMWR and showcase the awareness through the fashion style.
That's quite some development that you mentioned there. So this is why, like Runa, in order just that you could add up, because we would like to know how are you contributing to resilient ocean through your design and manufacturing process. So I understand there must have been some modifications then.
Yeah, so I'm a designer who uses nature-based solutions in my design. And the SDGs have definitely helped me with this because all the SDGs are interlinked. And there was, apart from fast fashion, which is also contributing to this huge onslaught, which is dangerous to the environment, there was another important insight that came to my mind, that this was during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, I saw this rise of disposables with the masks. And it was something that got me to realize that during a crisis, it is very difficult for us to actually take care of climate action or do something which is beneficial to the environment. So if I, as a designer, needed to do something to help mitigate climate change, I would use nature-based solutions. So some of the solutions that I use, which I've also got for the United Nations Ocean Conference, is the revival of ancient indigenous techniques, which were used like in the Japanese royal courts when it comes to printing and dyeing, and the use of chlorophyll inks rather than the chemical inks, use of chlorophyll as a photochemical because you can use the energy of the sun to print. So these are some of the few ways that I kind of take my design process across. And I believe that as a designer, you need to look into your processes and see what it is that you could alter or you could change, and what process in your design creation is causing the maximum carbon footprint, and what could you do as a creative person to help mitigate that. Now, if you ask me to go to where cotton crops are grown or where jute is grown, I do not have that knowledge or the technicality, but I know what I could do in my design process. And what I try to do is nature-based solutions. So to answer your question, Patrice, this is the way I take it across.
Thank you for this information, Svein. I mean, you already pretty much like also explained how your development process is happening, but is there like do you see like a general blueprint that you can suggest or consider for other companies in order not to be harmful to the oceans, that they should keep in mind whenever they're producing their products? As I said, I already didn't really know that how much of the chemicals are going through the seas over to the ocean. I mean, it's quite obvious now that you mentioned it, but really everybody just talked about the plastic. So is there more to it, like a blueprint where people even can get information before they make the mistakes, how they can actually avoid polluting?
Patrice, this is a good idea. We should probably try to create such a platform so we can share these things with everybody. Now, if you look at in apparel, maybe first off, simple, we just need to understand what items or part of items are more likely to end up in the ocean. Items that will be washed more often needs more attention. And it would be good to avoid polyester and also recycled polyester, as they shed the same amount of microfibers anyway. So, several scientists say that we need to get out of the circular economy thinking concerning fossil fuel-based apparel, and we need to invest into environmentally balanced raw mats. So maybe options are perhaps basically bio-based, grown without toxic fertilizers, no pesticides, maybe linen, hemp, lyocell, and of course organic cotton. So that would be like top of mind.
Okay. Talking about the responsibility, it's a question that I would like to give to both of you, because it's always kind of the blame game. It's the industry, it's the politics, it's the consumers. To whom really lies most of the responsibility when it comes to maintain the oceans and really avoid pollutions? Sometimes the consumer doesn't even know what he's buying. He just sees it's flashy, it's practical, that's it. So it's difficult really to say like it's his fault that this market exists. So on the other hand, just to blame the politics, sometimes they don't even know, they're busy with so many other things. Also, that would be too difficult. And again, we're even talking about a blueprint for other companies. So the knowledge base apparently is not even there. So, but do you see like someone who should start first, perhaps out of these three groups that I mentioned: the consumer, the politicians, and the producers?
I think it's very important for any industry to definitely have the governments backing them. And education is very important for the consumer. That is something I always tell people, that you need to ask questions, and don't worry even if you think it might sound silly, because there's some questions you might think are silly but could actually have a lot of depth to it. Because right now you have, this is a very important time in our lives where there are a lot of changes happening, especially on the environmental front, and we hear a lot about greenwashing. Of course, there's a lot of lack in transparency. And I have worked with various factories in developing nations, and I know how outsourcing works. So it is almost impossible to find out where your garment is actually getting made, even if you do go and visit those certain factories. But when it comes to responsibility, I think that's why we have the SDGs that are kind of put up as a blueprint that we need to follow. And it is up to us as people in the industry to take this upon us as being ethical and right, so that whatever proposal we take across is working in tandem with the governments, and what we give to the consumer is something that we have already tried and tested, and we know is just not for the monetary gain, but for the future betterment of our world.
Svein?
Yeah, I can only agree with Runa. She's, of course, totally right. Now, so ocean protection, it is teamwork. We all depend on the ocean for the current and future existence, so we kind of need to jump into it all together. And consumers indeed can make their educated choices and vote for the ocean when they go shopping. Brands, however, need to take full responsibility for their own production. It's ocean pollution, and not leave that responsibility to the customers. However, we also need for the governments and the politicians to activate and execute their number one responsibility, namely protecting their citizens. Perhaps taxes should be put in place for use of fossil fuel-based materials, forcing the apparel industry to go towards bio-based raw materials. Or maybe on the other way, there should be tax incentives to be introduced for those brands that do not use plastic-based raw materials. Some will say that this will demand more land area to grow the biomaterials, but when we change not only our apparel habits, but also our eating habits, there will, as we know, be plenty of land available. Now, our scientists, like Professor Antje, Boetius, they need a stronger media platform, and perhaps more leading apparel brands. Let's say, for instance, Patagonia, and there must be many Patagonias. Everybody should be a Patagonia. So we can reach out and help the scientists' voices. They must be heard all the time. So we're all in this together, and we just need to challenge each other to move forward step by step all the time. It is like all about helping each other, connecting with the ocean personally. That's what we like through our water sports industry. And then start to protect it in any way possible. And it's like, it's right now, it's right here, it's right now. There's no time to lose. So we just have to get started.
Wow. Then thank you so much for your insights again, and congratulations on your efforts, and hopefully they will come even stronger and bigger, and also that you hopefully have become an inspiration for other brands to do the same. Thank you so much for that matter. We will be back after a brief break, so at 1540 we will continue with the next panel about global state of fashion. So we'll be back shortly. Thank you. Thank you, Runa. Thank you, Svein.
Thank you so much.